Hello and welcome back to the show. Today I have my good friend Zac with me. Hey Zac, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing fantastic, man. How you doing?
Good, good. I'm so glad to have this conversation with you. I'm so excited for our audience to get to know a little bit more about you, what you do, and really what you got going on, man. Because it's exciting to know, guys from Canada to be doing stuff internationally. So I don't really have many opportunities and meet many people. So this is a great opportunity.
Love it. Thanks for having me.
So for those who don't know Zac, he is a commercial realtor and real estate investor focusing on multifamily and short-term rentals. He has a passion for traveling and working remotely, along with creating unique experiences for guests. He's part owner of the Grotto Getaway, which is a glamping resort in northern Canada, and loves everything to do with real estate and business. And I know just recently you came back from Tony Robbins' conference, so I wanted
Yeah.
to get into that little bit. And one of the videos you talked about one of your key takeaways was fulfillment, and you mentioned one of his quotes was, "Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure." So, based off of what you experienced from Tony Robbins, how do you integrate fulfillment into your goals? Because we both heard so many stories of people like shooting for big companies, made millions of dollars, but they're like empty.
Yeah. I would say it was one of my favorite quotes of the entire weekend. And I would say part of the reason why is I've always had this philosophy that I don't want to be rich, out of shape, and have bad relationships, right? I kind of want to be more well-rounded. And he talks about this wheel of life where there's these like seven categories, and he wants you to be like a 10 out of 10 in all these categories. And to me, I think that's what fulfillment is, right? It's not just a 10 out of 10 in your finances, being super wealthy. It's also a 10 out of 10 in your relationship with your partner. It's also a 10 out of 10 in your mental health, your physical health, your spirituality, and more just being about well rounded. To me, that's what the fulfillment is, right? So when I write down my goals, I'm now not just writing goals for money, I'm also writing goals in my personal life, right? I'm writing goals for the gym, I'm writing goals for my mental health, I'm writing goals about how many times am I meditating, I'm writing goals about a lot more than just dollar signs, right? And to me, if I can hit all those goals across the board, that is pure fulfillment, right? And then just going into my passion, like you said originally, I got a huge passion for traveling. So for me, fulfillment wouldn't be if I can't run my business and also be away in Mexico or be in a different country at the same time, right? That's like that perfect balance that I need. I need to be able to make money, but also do it in a beautiful place that I feel fulfilled, that I feel excited, and I feel creative in.
Awesome. Do you think, because there's always like a work-life balance, or that kind of like where everything wants to be like I guess a medium. Do you feel like
Yeah.
that's applicable to life or not really? Or
You know what? It's like I'll go back to Tony. He talks about it being in seasons, right? Like life has seasons, and I do think there's going to be seasons, especially when you're growing, that the balance might be a little bit tilted more to the work side and a little bit less on the enjoyment side. And then there'll be other seasons in life where you'll be able to enjoy a little bit more and probably have that balance better. And honestly, I'm still young, but I still feel like even in my life, I've already had those seasons. I've had those seasons where, I didn't have a life. I was working 24/7, didn't really have the balance, wasn't able to hold relationships, and I just had my head down grinding. And then I had the other season where I was able to travel a little bit more, able to kind of enjoy the fruits of my labor that I put in all those hours. So I think it just comes in seasons.
yeah, I'm glad you said that's such an interesting point. Most people don't really think about that. As you were talking, I was like, oh yeah, that happens in my life too. It's like it's so nice to like just go after, but sometimes it's like I kind of just want to like relax for a little
Yeah.
bit.
And you know what? It feels better just thinking about it as this is just a season, right? If you're head down in the weeds, you know that like we're gonna get out of this. I just have to work hard, get myself through this, and then there'll be a season where I do get to relax a little bit more. I get to enjoy, I get to take that extra vacation, I get to hang out with my friends a little bit more and enjoy life and have that fulfillment that you're really looking after.
And I know you're a big proponent of like meditation, mindfulness. But I think Tony does all this stuff too. So based off
Yeah.
like what you know, based off all that, a lot of stuff in business and real estate can be very stressful and very uncertain. So how do you manage all that with it?
Yeah. I think it really goes back down to meditation, but also probably even before that, just like a morning routine, right? Where it's like 9 a.m. and I've already accomplished so much. I've already got my meditation done. I've already got my affirmations done. I already went to the gym, accomplished a workout. So by the time I sit down on my computer for usually 8:30, I'm like, I've already accomplished so much. I've been up for 3 hours. I've hit my entire morning routine. I feel good. I got food in me. I got a lot of water in me. I've exercised. My brain's healthy. And I feel like I'm ready to attack the day. That's like the easiest way I could say it. Other than that, I feel like if I have a very stressful day, what I'll typically do is sometime around like 2 or 3 o'clock, I'll usually shut my eyes for 30 minutes and just do a meditation. Put my phone on do not disturb. Typically, nothing's going to happen around 2 o'clock that's so important that it has to happen in the next 5 minutes. So I just take 30 minutes to myself, close my eyes, meditate for about 30 minutes. After that, it's like I'm rejuvenated.
When you do your meditations, do you usually do like, I know there's different types of breathing, or do you just breathe like normally? Because I know there's like a whole science for that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, I try to do box breathing. Box breathing is kind of like the natural, where it's like you hold for 7 seconds, right, or inhale for 7 seconds, hold for seven, and then exhale for seven, hold for seven. That's typically what I like to do. But most of the time, I also put on just like those binaural beats, put my headphones on, and then really just zone out and just really let my thoughts come into my head. Think about the thoughts, let them go. Think about the next thought, let it go, and just really almost like clean out my brain, right? Because there's so many thoughts going through our head all the time that the meditation, when I close my eyes, is really just a chance for me to like work through those thoughts in my head, see what's important and see what's really not important. It's just kind of clutter.
Yeah, I've noticed too. I know when we first met, we did talk about meditation. It's so interesting
Yeah,
how peaceful it is. I mean, I'm not the greatest at it because I fall asleep sometimes still, but
that's all right.
that's good. It's smart. I never thought about doing it during the day because like just to relax a little bit, but that's awesome, man.
Yeah. A lot of times for me, it's when I'm looking at my computer for just hours and hours on end. I
Yeah.
feel my brain gets a little bit foggy and my eyes just get really heavy. So it's not even like I'm trying to sleep or trying to meditate. A lot of times it's just like trying to give my eyes 30 minutes to relax and just think about all the other stuff that I need to think about. That's not just like looking at emails and getting through all the stuff that's coming at you.
I do. I know. I notice because real estate, like you look at the computer a lot, so I notice like my eyes they get like really dry, man. It's like holy moly, dude, you need to just like look away for a little bit.
Exactly. I feel that all the time. That's why 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock is usually when it happens. It's like, all right, 30 minutes. I need it for myself, and then I'll come back and get back to it.
I know part of real estate business, everyone looks for mentors or an opportunity to actually be a mentor as well. What are some ways or some questions or things that you do to make sure that someone does the right due diligence on someone to choose their mentor? There's a lot of bad mentors out there, but there's a lot of opportunities for people to find really good mentors, but they just miss
Yeah.
buzz because they maybe have some mental blocks or something.
Yeah. I'd say it goes back to like that awesome saying that you need to find a mentor who has accomplished exactly what you want to accomplish. That's step one, right? Like I wouldn't go look for a mentor who's like a doctor because I'm not in the medical field, right? So if they're a successful doctor, they're probably not the right mentor for me, right? But if I see somebody who's followed the path that I want to follow and that really kind of embodies the type of person that I want to be, that would be like my first checkbox, right? I'm like, great, that's the type of person that I want. Obviously, you have a discovery call with them, right? Ask them some questions about the type of mentorship that they do, figure that out, and then ideally, you're going to have to get reviewed from somebody else, right? Some sort of testimonial or some sort of referral from somebody that said, Zac, I used that mentor. He was fantastic. He helped me go from A to B. And that was the exact block that I needed to challenge, that I need to go through. Right. So typically those are the three things that I look for in a mentor. Obviously, make sure that they're doing what you want to do. But kind of that last piece there, like the testimonial or the referral from somebody, really helps because then it kind of solidifies all your thoughts that, hey, this person isn't just kind of saying everything that I want to hear. They're legitimate. They've helped somebody else. This person has no reason not to tell me the truth. They have no reason to lie to me. And they're actually telling me this person's a good person. Because mentorship, coaching, personal development, like I've spent so much money in this field and it's helped me out more than any book I've ever read or any podcast I've ever listened to. Like that one-on-one mentorship that you can get where somebody's like, what's your problem today? Let's fix it right now. That's done. What's next? That's another problem. Let's fix it. Right. And just kind of go through it step by step by step.
It's funny you mentioned coaching too, because yeah, I was like, I grew up under like very frugal money mindset, even though real estate. So I was pretty much like nickel and diming everything, trying to get things for free,
Yeah.
reading books, but like a certain extent where like books can only go get you so far. And I'm so glad I
Exactly.
took that leap into like coaching because like, man, it costs money, but man, it's like you get so much more worth it out of it. I mean,
It's the best money.
yeah, you get such a relationship out of it too, because like you people just go into those you're just thinking for knowledge, but like you get so much more than just that. So it's just like awesome.
Yeah. And you see it a lot too. Like I watch a lot of Q&As with really, really successful people. And I always get this question. I love this question. It's like, if you lost everything or if somebody had $10,000, what would you tell them to invest in? right? Like if somebody's starting from zero, they got 10 grand, what would you tell them to invest in? Almost 99% of the time, they always say personal development and coaching. Invest it back in yourself. Don't go buy a property. Don't go buy stocks. Invest that money right back in yourself and in your own head, right? That to me is the end all be all. It's the
Yeah.
most important. You can't take that away.
Yeah, I think that's what Ty Lopez said too, because I think someone asked him something similar, and his dad gave him the advice for like investing in yourself is like the best investment you can ever have. And coach
Absolutely.
is doing just fine.
Exactly. He's doing pretty good for himself.
Do you feel like for mentorship, do you feel like people have to be in a certain, I guess, wealth status in their life to be able to mentor? Because I feel like there's a lot of people that have a lot of potential that I feel like they do want to mentor, but maybe they just don't because they have to be at a certain threshold in life.
Yeah. I don't know if there's necessarily like a threshold, but
Mm,
I have seen situations and I've heard from other people just because you're super successful doesn't mean you're a good mentor. Like that still is, there's like a separation there where it's like, just because you did really well for yourself, you built this business,
mm,
sometimes people don't have it in them to teach the next person how to do that, right? Because being a mentor is like being a coach, being a teacher. You
mm,
have to be a certain type of person that's an active service, right?
mm.
So you're of service to the next person and really trying to coach them through it and teach them in a way that resonates with them. So I don't think mentorship and coaching is built out for everybody. So I think you could still be on your journey and maybe, like you said, maybe not at a certain status, but still be a very good mentor for somebody who's just starting out, right? You might not be a good mentor for somebody who's, got 100 properties and who's already here that needs to go to here, but you're probably a great mentor for somebody that has no properties, trying to figure out what to do in life, and you can help them kind of get that first one or help them on the right path.
That's a good point. I know it's interesting as you're talking. I think about a lot about sports.
Yeah,
Some coaches are like they're really, hear about their stories, you hear from other people who like played with them. Like when you're coaching, you're like, dang man, he plays like he coaches like he plays.
yeah,
It's like, man, that makes so much sense why they coach that way. But I mean, it's really about
exactly.
like, when you think about like all the sports greatest coaches, Mike Krzyzewski, and what's interesting about them is that they really build a relationship with all their players, and like, that's for them. And so just what you said was right on point. Like these guys knew about the players, they knew how to actually coach them, how to cater to them, and it really shows in
Exactly.
the results. Because you see, like when you see like the ones that are really good mentors and coaches, they're really very like transactional in the sense that like you're a player, X and O's, blah 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 points, and all the other great coaches, they really get after it.
No, and and you see it too because some of the players that end up going into coaching don't make good coaches. They were fantastic players, right? They're at the top, they're the captains, but all of a sudden they go into coaching and they're not good. And then vice versa, some of the best coaches literally have never been players.
That's so true. A lot some NBA. I think Eric Spoelstra was never a player too. And a few of the NBA coaches too. So that's so interesting. So now you do a lot of like commercial. You're a commercial realtor. What made you get into selling new developments versus existing projects? I'm pretty sure you do existing as well, but
Yeah, we do some existing. I mean, in Canada right now, we have a huge housing crisis, right?
mm,
There's not nearly enough supply for the amount of demand coming into the region. So right now, new developments is really, really hot. The government's got massive incentives for builders and anybody trying to create housing. So it's really just kind of going with the natural flow of the market and going with where the buyers are going and going with where the opportunities are. In commercial, right, we're selling opportunities to people. It's not, selling them a brand new house that they're going to move into. It's selling them an investment that's going to make them money. So really for us in commercial, it's kind of going with the market and seeing where the best opportunities that we can find for our clients. So right now, a lot of that's in new development. When it comes to the incentive programs, when it comes to how much demand there is for these types of projects once they're completed, right now I think that's where the best opportunity is.
what kind of incentives are guys is the government, I guess, incentivizing you guys with now?
Yeah, there's lots of different grant programs that you can get for building affordable housing. There's lots of different financing options on the front end and on the back end that are really attractive. So when you
Mm,
go to refinance, now they have programs that can get you up to 95% loan to value back on the refinance if you match all their criteria. So they've laid out the blueprint for you. If you follow the blueprint, you'll get fantastic financing, right? They got a lot of hoops to jump through, like any government incentive programs. But I mean, if you can do it and you can go through all of that, you get fantastic financing on the back end.
To find out about those kinds of programs, you guys usually subscribe to like a government agency that has like a subscription email block or email subscription thing where they just tell you, or do you just find it through like lenders or just the news?
It's kind of everything. I would say honestly, I would go even back to Twitter. I'd go to Instagram, social media. I follow a lot of different economists there. Yeah, definitely going on the CMHC website. That's like our governing body who handles all these incentive programs. So it's really just them. So if you stay in tune with what they're doing and all their new updates, then you're going to be in tune with everything that's going on.
Awesome, man. What trends are you seeing in new development projects?
So right now, the biggest incentives is for somebody building purpose-built rentals. Right? Everybody that used to be building pre-construction condos or townhomes to sell to the market have really taken a hit because of the high interest rates. Those buyers aren't there anymore, right? The people that used to be able to sell a project in a weekend, they do a really nice sales room. All of a sudden, the project goes and sells like 100 units in a weekend. Now that 100 units takes about 2 to 3 months, say, to sell those 100 units. And it's a way harder transaction because all the buyers are looking at it and saying, my mortgage might be 6.5% if I'm lucky when this townhouse is done. And if they're an investor, then the rent and the mortgage doesn't cash flow. So they're like, I'm not going to go buy that. And if you're a home buyer, do you really want to wait 3 years for your townhome to be built? Not really in this market, right? Do you have that extra $100,000 of cash to put down as a deposit? You might not because of the recession and because of how tight everybody's feeling. So really what everybody's moving towards is purpose-built rental housing, because there's so many people that need rental housing in these areas. And that's really where the government incentives are the highest, right? They're noticing that there's very, very low vacancy when it comes to any rentals in any major markets. That's why they've had a really tough time coming down on short-term rentals. They're really trying to push out a lot of the short-term rental game, especially in like the major cities, because they're thinking that it's taking away so much of the housing supply, which that's a whole different story. But what they're really trying to do is they're trying to incentivize builders to build affordable, purpose-built rentals in all these major cities and tertiary markets.
That's interesting to mention that. Yeah, that's been more popular down here too in the US, where a lot of the developers are moving towards like workforce housing and all that.
Yep.
Because I think our
It's a great
government,
model.
they're incentivizing a lot of developers too, which is good, which is definitely needed.
They got to fix the supply, right? Right now, we're having a huge supply and demand issue, and there's a lot of demand out there, but the supply is just not there. And you're in development as well.
Yeah.
Even if you decide to do a project today, like that project's likely not going to be ready for the next 5 years, right? Where somebody's actually moving in. So it's like we got to catch up on all those 5 years so that 5 years from now we have enough, and then 10 years from now we have even more than enough. But if we don't start that today, 10 years from now, it's game over. There's no people are going to be living on the streets.
Do you have any tips for handling communications with the city and county? Because with development, we have to go through towns and all that, and then engineers. That communication is not exactly a straight line.
It's really not. And honestly, I tell all my clients, I tell anybody trying to get into development, the smartest money you'll ever spend is on a planner and a good company that has inner workings with the city, that knows the city well. They both know each other, and they both can pick up the phone and call each other and have that trust to be like, this is a good project. I've checked it over. It matches everything you guys need. Let's get this done. Or like that's the best money you'll spend. There's a couple different names for them. They could be construction consultants, development consultants, planners, right? Like there's a lot of different kind of like subcategories and sub markets of that. But hiring out the right person in that category to me is the best money you'll ever spend in development.
Yeah, those people are out there. It's interesting. People I've talked to that have hired those kinds of people, those people have usually worked in the actual like city or county, so they really know like
Exactly.
money. And it's like that's genius. That's an easy way to make money.
Yeah. And you bypass a lot of the issues, right? You bypass a lot of the things that you never will even think about. So even when a client gets into a bigger project, I like to bring in the development consultants kind of as early as possible in the project, likely even when we're doing due diligence on the land. I'll bring them in, let them to do the feasibility study, let them talk to the city, do a pre-consultation, so that by the time we're closing, it's like we're already super confident on what we're able to do, and the ball's already in motion, right? We're not getting started then. We've got started like months ago, right? So on closing, it's like we're ready to go. Everything's firing in the right direction.
What are some cautions when buying land for like a new development project? Because I know a lot of people think just land, I should be good.
Yeah, I'd say kind of the biggest ones right now are really site servicing. We have a couple municipalities actually in northern Canada that the land might be cheap and you're really excited about it, you're ready to go build on it, but you actually don't have the water supply from the city able to handle that new development. So that's something that if you're coming from out of town and you don't know that, and you don't go talk to the city, you're going to think, wow, this land's so cheap. I'm going to go build 200 units. Little do you know, there's no actual water available for that site for the next 5 years as they upgrade the water treatment facility in that municipality. So that's kind of the biggest one that I'm seeing right now, where we see good opportunities for land. If somebody's willing to hold on to it for the next 5 years, they can buy land at a huge discount compared to what it actually is getting appraised at if the water was available. I'd say that's the first one. Site servicing as well too. Soil, right? Different levels of the property as well too. That's getting super expensive for people to bring in all the fill to make sure the land. In Canada, we have a lot of environmental issues. We have a lot of different escarpment boards. We have a lot of different protected species, protected trees. So getting into a site that has a lot of protected trees or inhabitants or anything like that, that can bring on huge, huge issues that you can never even imagine the cost of some of that. So that would be like kind of my high level, like biggest things to look out for if you're going to be going and purchasing some land.
That's interesting. You mentioned protected trees. How do you know if you have a protected tree or not? 'Cause, I mean, trees are tree. No, so you're like, everything's covered in snow. How are you supposed to see
It's just studies, right?
Oh.
That's why you got to hire the specialist. They go do their studies and they're going to put out this big report telling you that, like, here's all the trees that you have, here's all the birds that you have, here's all the different animals that inhabit this land, and here's all the stuff that's protected. And then it's up to you to go back to the city and figure out some common grounds and figure out what you're going to do with all that. And that sometimes can kill a project.
I can imagine you got to pay them off and then whatever you got to do to mitigate it.
Exactly.
What are some do's and don'ts when buying and or selling a new construction project?
Do's, I would say hire the right team, right? If we're talking new construction in terms of selling to the end user, right, to the buyer, to the investor, pre-construction, obviously hiring the right team. But I think it kind of goes in even before that when you're actually developing the project. I'd say working with a good, competent agent in that area who can help advise you on like what product is needed in that market. Because you could build this beautiful product and have really good marketing, but if it's not needed in that market, if there's no demand for it, then your project's just going to sit there, right? And we've seen it happen where, you know, a builder will go build townhomes, call it like an hour and a half away from like a major city, and like nobody wants to live out there. Like there's no grocery store out there. You know, it's very rural still. It's in a very, very small town. They built these beautiful townhomes that look really nice. They're a good price, but the investors don't want them and the end users don't want them, right? So they kind of just sit there stagnant, and that really is probably the don't of the project, right? Don't build something that doesn't actually match what the market demands for it at that exact time. And with building, a lot of it is timing, right? There's a lot of builders that had really good projects and really good locations that just unfortunately didn't time the market right. Interest rates started going up, and then the project started sitting there, right? Some of them delayed the projects, right? Some of them were doing pre-construction sales, basically canceled it, stopped construction, and are now just holding and waiting for the market to recover before they actually relaunch sales, restart construction, and get everything back going again, right? So do's, obviously market research, right? Figure out exactly what that market needs, do your feasibility study to make sure that it's very profitable, have large buffers in there for a lot of different things that can come up along the way or for market fluctuations. And then the don't is don't build something that doesn't match what that market wants, right? That's the last thing you want to do.
Awesome. And you kind of tackled this in your last statement. But what are some things that can cause a new construction project to stay on the market longer?
Yeah, I'd say really not doing the right research is probably the first thing. Market changing is probably one of the second things. Not spending enough money on sales and marketing and really getting your project out there. I'm sure you see it in your market. Whenever there's a big project, anytime I go on Facebook, social media, radio, like you're getting blasted with marketing for that, right? And you know that's a good project and you know they're going to be successful because everywhere you turn, if you're in that local market, you're getting hit with that development, right? They're right in your face. So that would be one of the things to help you have a successful project. If you don't have the capital to be able to market it correctly, you really, really got to be building relationships with good realtors that can actually get that product out there. Because if not, you're just kind of sitting there waiting, hoping and praying that people are going to come by and buy your project. And that's not a good strategy for anybody doing new development.
What are some red flags from realtors so we know, okay, we probably shouldn't go with this person.
Yeah. Red flags from us not to go with the developer or the builders.
Red flag on choosing a agent, so we know when we not to use them.
Oh, okay. Red flag on not choosing an agent. Well, I'll stick to the investment world because that's where I specialize in. I'd say just working with somebody who hasn't done or hasn't been active in that field for more than like 2 years, right? If they've got 2 years under their belt, talk to them about their last couple deals, right? Ask them kind of similar questions what you're asking me. What are you seeing out there in the market, right? Where are people losing money and where are people making money, right? Because us as realtors, sometimes we get told way too much information, right? And we know exactly what projects are losing money. We know what projects are making a lot of money, right? So we kind of know what's working in the market and what's not working. So I'd have those types of conversations with them. Most of the time, it's just background, right? Understanding what they've done, understanding how long they've been in the business. And red flags would be somebody being just like a yes man, where anything you ask them, they just say yes to it, right? Instead of saying no and kind of challenging your theories, right? If a client comes to me and says, Zac, I'd like to do this,
Hmm.
right? If I don't think it's going to be successful, I probably will challenge them and say, well, why do you want to do that? Right?
Hmm.
What's making you want to do that? If there's something that I don't know, sure, let's go try it out. But I can tell you right now that, past clients and past projects have been very unsuccessful doing said thing. So maybe we try something else, or maybe we try a different strategy,
Yeah.
right? So looking out for people to challenge you, challenge your theories, challenge your basis, challenge your ideas, so that it's kind of more like a back and forth, right? It's not just you telling them this is what I want and them just saying, yes, okay, let me go do that for you,
Yeah.
right? Them coming up with different ideas is something I look out for.
Yeah. I think I've been in my encounter of some bad realtors. Yeah, I know one of them was like, I was telling me about my project, and she went straight for the gun. She immediately asked me if she can sell the property. I was like, 5 minutes ago, why are you asking?
Yeah,
And then like
exactly.
only later on, like probably a couple of weeks later, and actually on Instagram, it was like, hey, how are you? Then like I noticed
Stuff like that, giving out the business cards in the first 10 seconds of meeting somebody. Anytime somebody does that to me, I just throw it in the garbage. I'm
that's
like, I barely even know who you are. You give me your business card in the first 10 seconds. I'm like, this means nothing to me right now. Right? Like I care more about who you are than I do about your business card with your phone number and email on it.
so I noticed a lot of the ones that are that great, they're very just transactional. Each other communications, like, okay, all they want to know is like, what do I want to bid for the price? I'm like, okay, I'm trying to get some other questions, man. Like
Yeah.
we get very pissed about you asking questions. Like, dude, it's more than just the price, dude.
Yeah. And I'd go back to your question, red flags, always a gut feeling, right? Like you're kind of mentioning there, you probably have a gut feeling that you're like, this person isn't acting in my best interest. They're not actually looking out for me. Like you said, they're just transactional, right? They're just trying to get the deal done. And after that, on to the next, and they're probably never going to call me back for the next couple of years.
Mhm.
Right? Those aren't the people you want to work with. You want to build relationships, right? Like I can happily say my clients are literally my friends, right? Even saying the word client feels awkward to me because to me, I just look at them more like a relationship that I've had for so many years that I can pick up the phone and call them if it's their birthday, or I pick up the phone and call them if we got to go do a deal. It's like the same conversation.
Yeah. I know a big part of your role too as a realtor is to be able to help the seller price it out the project or for selling. Do you have any
Yeah.
tips on what to do in selling in such a market? Because man, here in California, people are like still putting it on the market for like way over market price. I'm like, dude, this is like the prices are still like 2021 prices or where everything's
Yeah.
inflated. I'm like, dude, that makes no sense, man. What do you think he's gonna sell it with like interest rates this high?
Yeah. Ideally, yeah, everybody wants to get the highest price, right? That's every seller. And if you're seeing properties get listed at 2020 prices, I could probably guarantee you it's not the realtor trying to do that. It's the seller who's just like, let me try. Right? They're like, let me just try to list at this price. Let me see what happens. Maybe we find somebody overseas that has cash that wants to buy it. Right? That's usually the conversation that happens. And sometimes as a realtor, we don't know everything. Right? We don't know if somebody's going to be willing to pay that price until we put up on the market and see what happens. Right? So that's kind of that situation where you end up seeing properties listed at 2020 prices. That's usually the reason why. What we try to do, and again, this is very dependent on the type of product that we're talking about, right? Because again, we sell a couple different types of products. So land compared to multifamily, they're all going to be priced differently. Some is multifamily, I would say, is a lot easier to price because we're looking at cap rates, price per door, comparables. Land is way more difficult to price, right? Because yes, you can go on a price per acre, you could go on a price per approved gross floor area, but it's still like, is it zoned? Is it not zoned? How close to they are getting approvals? Is it just raw land? Like there's so many more factors. So a lot of times you just have to work backwards, right? What could this project do? Let's work backwards from there, and let's find out where there's a price that makes sense for the seller and a price that makes sense for a buyer, that they could buy it, do the project, and still be profitable, right? In commercial, it has to be a win-win. It can't just be one-sided. It can't be the seller only wins and it can't be the buyer only wins, or else it's not a good deal for anyone.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned that. I
Right.
know a lot of people like it's always like one-sided conversation when it comes to on the residential side there. And usually the seller
Always.
is trying to get like the biggest buck, but like if you're trying to get it by, it's like, dude, that makes no sense at all.
Exactly, right? In any transaction, whether it's real estate or whether we're talking about shoes and you're trading it on Facebook, right? Everybody still needs to feel like they got a good deal. And if they don't, it's going to leave sour taste in everybody's mouth.
And now to the topic I've been waiting for. I know you're doing some stuff in Tulum. I think it's so interesting to do international stuff. So
Yeah.
I know in Mexico, it's not exactly as polished as the US or Canada with their backend system. So how do you like facilitate the sale of your projects? Since I'm pretty sure there's no escrow title company there, right?
No, well, we call it something different in Canada. So escrow in the United States is different than what we call it up in Canada. But I will say I'm proud of Mexico and how simple they made the process. We had a good team, we had a good realtor, we had a good lawyer down there, and they actually made the process a lot more simple than people make it out to think. So I've been in other countries and I've looked at real estate in other countries where it was a lot more like the wild wild west of real estate, where it's like, there wasn't really a lot of paperwork. It's kind of just like sometimes your offer is literally an email where you email somebody saying, hey, here's the price that I want, here's the conditions that I want, and that in their country is a legal offer, right? So Mexico is way more legitimate than that. So we were able to buy that property, feel really really good about it. Our lawyers checked over everything like 10 times, and we're very excited about the future of that project.
How do you guys do due diligence on like property ownership? Because I know they probably don't have like something as like do they have like a software where you're able to check like who owns the property and all that over there?
So not us, but the lawyers were able to. The lawyers were able to go to the government office and literally check the titles, check the deeds, and make sure that the contract of what the seller's name said matches up with the deed of the actual title of the land. So they were actually able to help us with all of that. And we were able to do that stuff in Canada.
That's awesome. Do they speak
Yeah.
English over there in Tulum?
You know what? Our realtor was from Canada, right? So that helped out a lot. So they spoke English. They moved down there probably like 9 years ago. So that helped out extremely well on the negotiation standpoint. Then the lawyer themselves didn't speak Canadian, but somebody in their office spoke English, not Canadian, spoke English, right? So they were able to translate for us kind of back and forth and be the mediator to help us get through all the documents and figure out exactly what we needed. So not everybody in Tulum speaks English, but I would say is growing in popularity, and more people down there in the different fields that you need them for, at least in real estate. Somebody speaks English along that process, or at least speaks broken English enough to get by.
That's interesting. Yeah, because that's interesting. Because like, how do you manage all that like not non-English people? Because I know because I'm going to do stuff in the Philippines too, and like most people there speak
Yeah,
English because it's our single language, but it's kind of the
yeah.
same process.
Philippines.
Because there's so many stories where like people are just like fighting over the property, who has actual property. It's like, holy crap, how do you actually like do that? But the same thing, we have to go to the lawyer and they actually check everything on the back
Yeah,
end, make sure it's all clean. Because it's interesting, because
yeah,
as like buyer not being able to like do your own due diligence and check it, because like in the US you can just check everything online. But now it's
yeah.
like, man, you really have,
I'll be honest. In Canada, you can't.
oh, you
Right. So
can?
no, you can't. So in Canada, realtors, lawyers, and professionals are allowed to check online to see who actually owns the properties, but the regular citizens can't just go on some sort of software and check and say who owns 123 Main Street. They
Wow,
usually they call me and ask me who owns it.
man, that's interesting.
So
Man, we're spoiled
it's
here in
very similar.
we're spoiled here in the US then.
You guys have way more information available for the public than we do up here.
Is this because like they want to be more private for you guys or for the seller, or is it just
It's just it's long-standing privacy acts in Canada that we really don't give out a lot of information. We don't give out people's phone numbers, email addresses, mailing addresses, nothing. We don't give out any of that information.
dang, that's actually better. I'm thinking about because like, dude, here in the US, everyone's got like, you get all their contact info, where they used to live, who their exes was. It's like, holy moly, man, that's kind of
Yeah, it's crazy.
a lot more.
I remember a story a wholesaler told me down in US that he said, Zach, as soon as somebody hands in a divorce paper to the local county, he's like, I can have a paper in their door the next morning like this because it's all automated. It's all public news, right? If somebody's getting a divorce, it's like all open public news.
Damn, that sucks.
It's crazy. Love
Canada.
to, yeah, exactly.
What did you learn about investing internationally that you didn't necessarily know doing it locally? Since I'm sure there's a big, I guess, culture as well as like investing perspective that you got from doing stuff internationally.
Yeah, I'd say where I got motivated from it, there has been a lot more Canadians starting to move out of Canada to invest in other places, just to kind of diversify risk a little bit. For
Mhm.
me, it's always been one of my dreams to own property somewhere very, very warm, right? Like we were talking earlier, I am not a cold weather person. I love the warm weather. So my ultimate dream is that when it gets cold in Canada, I go down south and I hang out there for the period that there's snow. After the snow melts, I'll come back up to Canada. So I've always been kind of searching what's that place that I'm going to invest in that's somewhere warm. Ideally, for me, it's on the same time zone to make it easier for work. And when I went down to Mexico and I landed in Tulum, honestly, it was just like meant to be. I felt the energy of the city. It has a lot of exactly what I like. It has the beach side of it. It has the meditation side of it, kind of like the yoga, healthy, mental, physical side of it. And it really has a really good business side. So there's a lot of people down there hustling, trying to make things happen. There's a lot of development down there and a lot of real estate happening, which is just obviously speaks my language. So it
Mhm.
kind of had a little bit of everything for me.
So since you're doing international, do you get like tax incentives that you wouldn't? I guess does that carry over to like your Canada taxes?
Yeah, it's not really, there's no incentives. I don't think Canada's happy that I'm going down there to take my money and invest, but you don't get double taxed on it, right? So I'm not going to get taxed twice on the income that I make. I'll get taxed on Mexico, and then Canada will tax the difference of what I would have been taxed up here.
Interesting.
So they still make their money. Mexico makes their money. Everybody's happy. I pay my taxes.
Yeah, that's wild. You still get taxed even though like your project's out in Tulum.
I know. I had somebody really successful guy told me because I remember I was complaining to him about taxes, and he just said, Zach, if you're paying taxes, it means you're making money. So he's like, never complain about paying taxes because it means you're doing something well and you're making money. Ideally, you want to pay less taxes, and that's why you hire a good accountant to make sure you're paying the least amount.
Yeah.
But the richest people in the world still pay taxes.
Yeah, that's interesting. How do they check that? I mean, like, because I'm pretty sure they don't, or they
A lot
just
of self-reporting.
interesting.
Yeah, they put it all on me. So it's like I got to self-report the money that I made. In Mexico, actually, they're way more on top of it, where I actually have to file taxes every single month for the
Wow.
corporation that we set up down there. So you actually have to get a bookkeeper basically on retainer, and they file your taxes every single month to make sure that everything's staying above board. Whereas Canada, I think similar to the US, is once a year. Mexico, it's for corporations every single month you have to file your tax.
Dang. Holy
Yeah.
moly. They must be so busy all the time, man.
So busy, so much extra work. We told them like that's so crazy. You guys have to do that every single month. That you're gonna have to do all the books and figure everything out, balance all the accounts,
Mhm.
and file the taxes.
Dang. Those bookkeepers must be super happy though.
Oh yeah, they love it. They love seeing us come down there, open up corporations. They just see all the money signs.
Was it hard for you to open up a corporation down there since you're international?
I wouldn't say it was hard. It definitely wasn't easy. Like I'm not gonna say it was a slice. It was a walk in the park. We had to go down there. We had to sign some paperwork as well too. But the lawyers we worked with, honestly, they made it super simple. Like for my first transaction, I'd say I got very blessed to work
Mhm.
with really good people because they made the process so much easier than it could have been. Or like this could have been super stressful. They said, no problem, take a trip down here. We got to sign some paperwork in person and we'll make it all happen for you guys.
Did you have to get a citizenship to be able to own Node?
Nope.
Oh,
Canadians and Americans don't need citizenship to own.
wow, that's cool.
Yeah. That
That's
was another reason why I chose Mexico. There was other countries I liked, but
mm,
they either required citizenship or they required a certain investment of a certain amount for me to buy property there. And it was like, man, Mexico has like their arms wide open. They're like, come down here, invest, spend your money, and you're one of us. So I love that.
so how do you guys manage it? Do you guys have they use like Airbnb and all that because everything's in like what US dollars? So how do you guys
Yep.
transfer to Canadian? Do you have to like use like a third party, I guess,
Yeah.
thing to transfer the currency and all that?
So this is a big question, right? It's like, do you take the money out of the country and get taxed on it again? Or ideally, what we're likely going to do is we have a Mexican bank account that has a Mexican debit card and credit card that the money will keep building up in there. And we'll just use the credit card or debit card if we're in Canada, the US, or in Mexico, and actually just use it for like everyday expenses right, for that business. So instead of trying to take the money out, similar how we go use our credit card down in Mexico,
Yeah.
all the advice that we got was just take the Mexican credit card and go use it in Canada, or go use it in America, or go use it other places. You're going to pay the difference of the conversion, but then you're not getting double taxed on it.
Yeah, well, that's clever.
Right. Saves it. Instead of like you said, yeah, we could take out money, right? We can transfer it, but as soon as that hits our Canadian bank account, now we're getting taxed on it again in Canada.
I mean, that's interesting. That's so cool,
So
man.
like,
That's an awesome experience, man.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. Ideally, the money's going to keep building there and we keep buying down in Mexico. I'm very bullish on Mexico as a country, Tulum as a city, and just as a whole. I think Mexico's really set themselves up correctly to be a powerhouse coming in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I know besides Tulum, I know Tijuana's been super popular too. I know when
Yep.
I went down there for Cole's orphanage, man, dude, there's a lot of new developments out there and they're like very
Huge.
modern. I'm like, holy moly, dude, like beachside, it's just there and so much dirt. I'm like, wow, these guys probably make
Yeah.
there.
And the industrial side of it too, right? Like there's a lot of American companies that are buying land in Mexico, building their industrial warehouses there, and then just shipping back to the US. So instead of going to get all their resources from China or overseas, now they're just saying, well, it's so much easier for us to go buy land in Mexico, make all our products there, and then just bring it back up to the US, right? Then you're going on a transport truck instead of going on a boat or a plane or something that costs a lot more money to transport.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was talking to one guy about that too. I was like, that's so interesting. I live here in San Diego, so it might be an opportunity in the future. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
you're right there. That's nice and quick for you.
Yeah. Last but not least, and the most important question, how can our
Yeah.
audience get in touch with you?
I'd say right now, Instagram is probably the best way to do it. Sometimes emails get lost or they get sent to spam. So just follow me on my Instagram, Zac Willms, ZACWILLMS would be the best way. You can DM me on there and happy to chat with anybody.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, bro. For the audience, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and take care.
Thanks, Garrett. Take care.